Welcome to Think Bigger Voices, hosted by Jennie Treby and co-produced by Tony DiBenedetto. We're on a mission to break the cycle of poverty for kids in America by inspiring education, advocacy, and action in our communities. We'll tackle big subjects, talk to the experts, and promote the solutions making an impact. Join us if you believe that every kid deserves the opportunity to think bigger.
Welcome to Think Bigger Voices. I'm Jennie Treby. We're here in the greater Washington, D.C. region talking to some pretty incredible people who are helping kids in the community. Our guest is a Think Big for Kids advisory board member. He's a veteran coach and teacher, one of Fairfax County's best. Welcome, Mr. Marc Matthie.
Thank you. Thanks. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
We've got some great opinions that we love to hear. So 22 years of coaching.
Yes.
18 years in the classroom.
Yes.
Right now you're teaching PE?
PE, yes.
Yes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I've had several experiences. Started off as a coach, ended up being in the classroom. I was a marketing major, so I ended up doing marketing education. So I was teaching there, became a leadership teacher, and then I've been doing physical education, PE, and I really enjoy that. I feel like it's a place where kids can come, enjoy themselves, and it really gives me an opportunity to build relationships, because that's really why I feel like I'm there to help to build relationships so I can be somewhat of a mentor to the kids. So I enjoy the PE classroom, and I still coach because I really enjoy that too as well.
What do you coach?
So I coach football. And my kids are pretty much say like, I coach life too. Like I always have these life lessons. So even in my classroom, we'll come together and they always act like they don't want to hear these messages, but I'll give my life lessons of the day. And the life lessons is pretty much stuff that makes me upset. So if the kids do something wrong, they don't listen, they don't do things, I say, oh, there's a life lesson coming up. And so I'm
do you get eye rolls?
Eye rolls, that's what they do. Like kids eye roll, that's all they do. So so we'll do that. And if they behave, they don't get a life lesson. So like if they behave and do a good job, they don't get a life lesson. But as soon as they act up, I'm telling them there'll be a 5-minute life lesson. And so it's good. So it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So
do you remember off the top of your head any of the life lessons?
Ooh, that's a good one. Not many life lessons. Number one, you don't have to talk. Once I say something, you don't have to ask me the question that I just said. Like kids struggle with that, like literally. And one of the things that they'll say is, I just want to make sure. Like I just want to make sure that I've got it. And it's like, I just literally told you this 3 seconds ago. So we'll talk about that and just having them not being so dependent on adults.
And you're ninth grade, right? You're
ninth grade.
So that's got to be an interesting group, right? So the babies of high school, they've been through middle school, right? They can't drive yet. Yeah.
It's like an interesting world because you're in I used to teach middle school 3 years. I'm probably not going to do that again, but I did 3 years of middle school, and it's just a lot of energy, a lot of things. If you're not monitoring them, like somebody might end up being in the trash can, that sort of stuff. Like that's what's going on in middle school. It's chaos, right? And ninth grade has a little bit of that, but then when you go to 10th grade, they do nothing. And so like ninth grade is that in between like energy, and then like our 10th and 11th graders who are just straight apathetic and just like, I'm cooling out, I'm just chilling, I'm not gonna do anything. Like it's this phenomenal road that I'm in ninth grade.
Do you find that even the effort in PE is different between Yes. There is a lot of effort in middle school, not a lot of effort in PE in 10th grade. Let's just say not a lot. There's like a lot of motivation that you have to give them in order to be successful. Life lessons.
And so I realized kids don't show that they want to hear it, but they actually do want to hear it because they really love realness. They love authenticity. They crave it. And so, but they're not allowed to show you that they like it. And so you live in this world where kids are showing you that they don't like it, but they really do like your advice and your guidance.
Man, you have to be thick-skinned, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very thick-skinned, but it's okay.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit. So you yourself played football,
right?
Did. You were a star athlete. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Star. Yeah, so long ago, we were successful as a football program. We ended up winning a state championship. Now, we did have an NFL player on our team.
Ooh, who's that?
His name is Baldrew. He played for the Packers and also for the Chargers. And I always tell people, like, my dream of being an NFL player died in high school because I was playing next to one.
Yeah.
And so when you're playing next to an NFL player, you know that you're not quite that good, so you're not going to be in the NFL. So, but we were successful. I started both ways, but we had a phenomenal coach. He won 2 state championships before he was at Chantilly, and we won a 3rd there in his last season. So that was an awesome, just an awesome experience.
Yeah, and then you played in college.
I played in
That's
college.
a whole nother level, of course.
Yes.
College ball.
Yeah, so I played in college, and actually, I think that's kind of where I realized that I maybe wanted to go into education. For the longest time, I wanted to go in business. I was going to make money. I'm a 90s kid, and the whole idea was get rich and retire early. That was like the big thing, get rich and retire early. But I had some experiences as an assistant coach my final year. I ended up becoming an assistant coach. So in the spring, I was an assistant coach helping out. And in my final year, I actually had some great mentorship opportunities, and I really enjoyed that. And I realized, like, maybe I should go into coaching as a profession versus business, because I really enjoyed the mentorship aspect. That was cool.
Yeah. So then you went on, you coached at the college level.
I did.
Right? Yeah. So at William and Mary, where you played, and then Catholic U, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then you're at the college level, you're coaching football. How did you get into the classroom then? Like, how did you transition from college football classroom?
That's a great point. I didn't like, the recruiting was too much for me. I didn't like the idea that we were focused on other kids versus focusing on our own kids.
Interesting.
And so, that was a serious situation. Like, you bring these kids in, you're just like, we're going to sit here, we're going to develop you. And then literally, as soon as they're in, we're like, all right, let's focus on the next batch of individuals. And I didn't enjoy that. But I started to realize more about myself is that I actually enjoy the process of taking somebody from point A to point B fully and seeing them fully develop. And that's probably why I don't like middle school as much, because I don't get an opportunity to see the point B. I just see the point A.
Yeah.
And so I like to see that. I like to journey with them throughout
Like seeing the kind of like cocooning into little butterflies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they do become that.
Yeah. You have a really unique and cool philosophy about serving the underserved, serving the at-risk, serving kids at risk. Can you share that with us?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is something that's near and dear to my heart, because I'm always trying to reach out to kids that I call them 4D. I call them disengaged, discouraged, disillusioned, and disconnected. Right?
Wow. Okay. Say that again.
Yeah. So the disengaged, disconnected, disillusioned, and then discouraged.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, these kids are walking our hallways, right? And that could have been me. I was born in Jamaica and moved to New York. And in those areas, there was a level of poverty. We were in a middle class neighborhood in Jamaica, but when we moved to America, we were in a situation where there was a little bit of poverty. But because of my 2 parents and their focus on education, I wasn't going to become one of those kids that were going to be 4D, right? I was going to be one of those kids that were going to be super duper engaged because my parents made me that way. But I always asked myself, like, what if I didn't have those 2 parents? Like what if life was different? What if there were different circumstances? I can definitely see that. So I've always gravitated to how I can help those 4D students. And so my thing's like, well, why are they that way? Like, why are kids 4D? And it's really simple. It's things have happened to them. Okay. And they don't have certain inputs. So the things that they've had happen to them, you've heard this a lot, is this adverse childhood experiences. They call them ACEs, right? And so, like, these are things of like abuse, neglect, but a lot of times it's just dysfunction in their home, dysfunction in their community, right? And they don't have the stability that a lot of other kids are able to get, right? And so they're trying to go through life without that stability. And then there's other side of it where they're not getting certain things. So these kids don't feel as loved, right? Like, they don't feel cared for. There's a high level of instability, right, that they have in their lives. And there's also, they don't really have a bright future. So you can see if you're in those experiences, if you're in those experiences where you're receiving the ACE and you're not receiving love, you're not receiving hope, you're not receiving these sort of things, then you're going to become one of these 4D students. So what do you do with that, right? And there's a couple theories that I think are very good to kind of handle that. There's an individual his name is Rick Miller, and he has this thing called Kids at Hope. I don't know, have you heard of Kids of Hope?
No.
So it's a play, instead of a kid being at risk, they're at hope. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So to the whole idea is they're not at risk, they just haven't received the hope. So when the kid
shows
shows
positive,
up to you,
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like flipping it on its head.
But
yeah.
even so, it's true. Like the kid is not at risk. He has risk factors, he or she has risk factors, but they're coming to you looking for hope. And so one of the things that he will always say is it's not about what we can give. It's not about how we can kind of handle these kids or dealing with these kids or dealing with their situation. It's about the hope that you can give them. And so one of the things that they talk about is, and Kathleen Beachboard mentions this, that hope is almost like this like dam that protects your well-being. So if you imagine a dam that's protecting your well-being and it's protecting you from all the problems that you have in life, it's protecting you from all these like adverse situations that are occurring in your life, that sort of stuff, it's protecting you there. So if we strengthen people's like hope, it protects your well-being. So what are we doing to intentionally pour hope into kids so their well-being is not as affected, right? That's something that we have to look at. Another thing too, this is an educational theory. This guy his name is Robert Marzano, and he has this thing he calls, if you want to get a kid to cognition and metacognition, which is cognition is your ability to critically think, problem solve. Metacognition is your ability to do a task with like high energy. If you want kids to be able to do that, you have to fix their self-system. Like their self-system is things like their self-esteem, their self-efficacy. Do they find this particular task important, right? And then also the last part is their emotional management. It's only until you fill them up in their self-system that their other aspects of cognition and metacognition happens, which is the schooling. So what are we doing to match that? What are we doing to fill those kids up? If we are intentional in filling kids up with those things, then learning will happen. Then success will happen. But if we're not intentional with giving them hope, fixing their self-system, then they're going to be disillusioned, disconnected, disencouraged, and then all the other risk factors that occur from that.
So, Mark, how do you do that? That's a big task, right?
That's a good point, because these guys are doing theories, right?
Yeah. How do you put that into practice?
So here's what we're doing. We've created this class called Agency and Empowerment. And so what we're doing is, why don't we just put all these 4D students in this class? And then let's just be intentional with feeding them hope. Let's be intentional in fixing their self-system. And a lot of this stuff's already occurring with two wonderful teachers at Westfield High School. They're taking these kids from these, we call them hall walkers, right?
The hall walkers.
They're talking these kids that are walking the hallways, that are in the bathrooms, doing all sorts of stuff, right? They're taking these kids, they're like, instead of going into the bathroom, why don't you come into my class? And that's providing an area of safety for them, right? And then they were unintentionally providing things for their self-system. Ask them how they were doing, giving them hope, throwing in areas of love. They were giving them the things that they were missing in general. Well, those kids would just show up. Just kept on showing up to the classroom. I'm tired of this teacher. I'm tired of this kid. And they would show up to the class. And then they would kind of feed them those particular things. So my thing is, instead of creating this kind of hard situation where they're showing randomly into your classroom, why don't we put them in a class? And then why don't we have our best relationship builders feed these kids hope? Feed these kids opportunities. Why don't we get our community to come in and feed these kids with hope and feed these kids with opportunities? Like, if we're able to do that, they can then see themselves being greater than what they think about themselves. And then that's how the process occurs. But we have to change the system in order to do that. We have to put these kids together, and then we need to bring our best and our brightest to feed them.
Tell us a little bit more about them, because it's important for people to hear. Because, you're talking about we drop our kids off and expect them, but that's assuming even that the kid has somebody in their life who's helping them even get there.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's a challenge. I shared with you a video that made me understand a little bit about like where our 4D kids are going from. And so the video is they have everybody, they're going to race for $100. And so it's probably a 100-meter race. And so kids are excited, like, because you put $100 out for a kid will do anything, right? You put $50 out for a kid will do anything. So they're all excited. They're doing their stretches, they're doing their warm-ups, and it's an athletic camp. So it's a bunch of athletes. The guy says, before we race, I want to, say a couple things. Take 2 big steps if you have 2 parents in your life. Take 2 big steps. Take 2 big steps if you're not worried about where your next meal is coming from. Take 2 steps. Some people are taking big steps. Some people are still remaining on the line. Take 2 steps if you have access to a private education. Taking 2 steps, right? And the people who are taking 2 steps are just like, oh, I'm closer to the goal, right? The individuals who aren't taking those big steps are understanding what's going on. Okay, they're understanding that this other individual has an advantage for them, right? The individuals in the advantage, they're clueless. They're just thinking, I'm closer to the money, right? I'm closer to getting to where I need to go. And obviously a bunch of other things, which I've experienced, right? Talk about why I'm so into like the 4D kids, because that's me. I have 2 parents, access to a private education, like access to these different things. People like, I'm from Jamaica, right? And so we're big on family. So every time I go, it's like, Mark is great. Mark is awesome. Mark is great. Mark is awesome. Like I go big church family. Like every time I go, I have these, lovely, the older sisters and the mentors. Mark, you're so great. Mark, you look good. Mark this, Mark that. Like I feel great about myself. Not everybody has that.
Right.
So I have these advantages, right? And then eventually the guy was like saying, hey, look, we're going to have to run the race, right? We're going to have to do certain things, but there's a reason why certain kids succeed and a reason why certain kids aren't successful. It has nothing to do with them. It has everything to the things that were given to them, right? And so if you're if that person, just imagine you're in that person's shoes, think about the race. And they were like, hey, you can win the $100. Like, what? Like, that's what they're thinking. How do you mean I'm going to win the $100? Look at these people. Look at these people. Look at what's going on over here. There's no way I could win the $100. As a matter of fact, nobody looks like me who's winning that $100. So how do you expect me to win that $100 when, number one, there's so many disadvantages that I have, and number two, nobody looks like me that's winning the $100? That's what we need to think about. Like, put yourself in those shoes, right? And so still got to run the race because that's the way life is. And it is what it is, right? But like, there are things that we can do to put a turbo pack on a kid, right? That's what we're doing with Think Big for Kids. What can we do to put a turbo pack on a kid so that way that can help them, assist them? Hey, you can still run the race, because here's what we don't realize about the 4D kid. They actually have the soft skills. Being creative, problem solving, like those they have to do that just to get to school. They got to problem solve their life just to figure out what meal they're going to get. Like, they're not expecting certain things. So the problem solving skills, the creative skills that we're looking for, the critical thinking skills, just to live, they have to do that. We don't tell them that they have those skills, but they have those skills. Their ability to communicate and do certain things. People have to communicate just to get on the bus, to avoid certain areas of their neighborhood, to make sure they don't get shot. Like, these are things that kids have to do. They're getting those skills. So if you take that kid with those soft skills and put them in an area where they can get a mentor, you have a more powerful worker than the kid who's just been walking through life and dropped off at the end of the escalator, who doesn't have any, because everything's being done for them. So if we pour ourselves into those kids, show them what can be done, then now you have a more impactful kid, because those kids have more creative and critical thinking skills than I do. Like, I don't have to think about those things. If you think about the lives, like the founder, Tony Benedetto, right? Like the what he had to go through in his life, that's what happened with him. When somebody poured into him, he was actually going to be a leader. He was going to be an entrepreneurship, because his life was filled with those experiences to make him that way. So what if, so as a country, as a community, as individual schools, what would it look like if we poured hope? That goes back to the class that we're having. Pour hope into those kids and let them believe that's the pack. Like, that's the rocket blaster, right? We're going to give you that hope to make you feel that you can actually win this race, right? And then now that they're on good footing, they now have the muscles to win the race because they've actually been doing these things and living the sort of life that they need to live in order to compete and be successful in life. So there's a significant amount of success that can occur if we actually look at it from their standpoint and provide them with the things that they don't have.
Yeah. Wow. How do you get people to engage? How do you fight the misconceptions that people have about these kids or those families? You know, because that's part of what we're trying to do is educate people. But how do you fight those misconceptions?
I mean, that's a great question. Because it's easy to make excuses for yourself, to give yourself an advantage. Like that's human nature, you know, to make yourself feel a certain kind of way so that way you don't have to engage with those individuals, right? Or individuals of poverty. I think you have to, it's making people feel what it feels like. It's an empathy process. Put yourself in those individual shoes. And it's not about it's not about even showing a story. It's having people explain their circumstances. And so I'll give you an example. I was watching this documentary on Robert F. Kennedy, RFK. And it was talking about his like presidential campaign. And he had several, and he wasn't always like, you know, giving back to the poor and had a heart for the poor. That's not where he's from. Like he's not from those communities. That probably didn't relate well with them. But there's some experiences that he had where he saw the poverty of the city. He was a mayor, I think, of a particular city in New York City. But then also on his campaign, he went through the South and he saw the absolute poverty that existed in the South. And he said, people live like this? Like if we were to go in and just have a day of a kid in poverty, the only thing that you can say is, people live like this? For real? So if people live like this, how can we say, hey, just pull yourself up by the bootstraps, man? Like, just suck it up, dude. Like, I did it. You did? You lived that life? You sure about that? Like, did you live this life to say you lived that? Live the life and then communicate the expectations, right? And so what we need to, I'm not saying in general to make you feel bad about your situation, right? The idea is to feel what they feel. And I love what the individual on the video talked about, the $100, is when you win the $100, maybe look back and think about how you can help out. Think about the advantages you had and that you know for real that you probably were, you know, you had some privilege, you won the $100. We're not taking that away. Go win your $100. But can you look back and maybe give $2, $3 and help out, $4 and help out somebody else in that situation? Because there's not going to be a greater feeling in the world than you looking back and helping somebody get to where you are. But when you come back and you die and you have this obituary, nobody's going to look back and be like, this person made $1 billion and he was great. Nobody cares about how much money you make when you die. The only thing you care about when you die are the people you influence and impact at your funeral, period. So my thing is, what are you doing for that? You care about your net worth? You care about those things? Because nobody's going to care about that when you die. Nobody remembers anybody's net worth when they die. Nothing, right? They only remember what you did for them and how you made them feel. So if those are the things you're going to think about when you die, then you should be thinking about how to make that happen when you die, because the reality is we will all die.
Yeah.
And so what were people going to say about you? And you know what? Like, if we can just have some people and again, just go into invest in the things that work. I get people are like, I don't want to waste my money. I don't want to throw my money into things that don't work. Okay. Throw it into things that do work. Like, for instance, this coaching stuff, like we have coaches in inner cities that are spending their own money to help kids get scholarships, like literally driving around to camps with their own money, feeding them, doing certain things to make sure that these kids can get a scholarship so eventually they can live the life that they want to live. We can't help that coach. We can't expense their trip. We're not asking you to do anything. We're asking you to put up $10,000 so you can take 100 kids around to certain areas so those kids can have the education that we say is so important to end up living the life that they live. They can now be in a situation where maybe they can make a little bit of money because of the way the NCAA is changing, where they can get paid, where now they can actually look at like giving back to their individuals. We can educate them with the money that they're making in college, so that way they can now have a little base and foundation. Like, those are like, spend your money in things that like work. Just don't throw your check at that stuff. But we know that works. Like, we see the NFL is filled with, hey, my coach, he took me to camp, and because I got that scholarship, that's the reason why I'm sitting in front of you. If we know that works, then do that. What about the band director, right? Who's taking their kids to all these different things. Like we see all these kids, like in the, HBCU bands, and everybody's like, oh, look at, like, those kids, a lot of them are from the inner city areas. There was a band director that cared for that individual. Could we put a little bit of money in those situations to help them? You don't have to spend your money and just throw it wildly. Spend it in things that matter and things that actually bring value. And so that way, because here's the thing, and I know we always say this, okay? The rising tide lifts all boats. Like, the reason why we are where we are now was because we as a country decided that it's important to have as many people in the middle class as possible. Like, America was not always this like rich nation. America was this like we said, give us your poor, you're tired. That we were a bunch of individuals. England was the one that was, thumbing their nose up at people and said they were great, right? Not English folks, you're fine, but I'm just saying that's kind of how it was back then. Like, it was like, just, we've read the history books, right? And so like, America was a bit like a lot of these individuals who were poor, and we made a decision as a country after World War II. We want more people in the middle class, and we're going to do whatever it takes in order to do that. My man Henry Ford says, I want people to buy my cars, so I'm going to give them a wage so they can buy my cars. So that way they can participate in the middle class. And it's from that is the reason why we have the greatness that we had.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I live my life. And I just think it's important. We need it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, I win. Like, that's people might look at that comment and be like, oh my goodness, like, you're giving. But at the end of the day, I receive more. And so all these cliches of like, when you give, you receive, and all these other things, yes, like, that makes sense. I tell the kids, and they finally figure it out, you can't get something off the bat. So you can't come to my classroom and say, hey, can I get this? The answer is always no, always no. Until you give, you will not receive in my classroom. Like, you have to give. So you have to give of yourself. You have to do certain things. You have to go through that process, and eventually you get what you want. That's how life works. You don't get what you want off the top. You got to give, you got to sacrifice, you got to do certain things. And within that, there are lessons to be learned when eventually it turns, and then you get to do what you want. And so eventually what kids realize, if I just listen, if I just do these certain things, if I just go through the process, then I call it the all access pass. Then you get the all access pass to the gym. So you can walk in and be like, hey, Mr. Matthie, and I don't say anything to you. But until you go through the process of giving, of self-sacrifice, of doing those things, you're not going to get what you want. And that's how it works in marriage. That's how it works as a mother and father. That's how it works as a friend. Like, all those things. If you don't give, you are not going to get. And I think, unfortunately, we're teaching our kids that you should get. And that's not the way it works. You've got to give. You got to self-sacrifice. You got to look after other people. And the way life works, if you do that enough, then eventually you get what you want. Yeah, this is what kids get every day. I'm telling you, these are the life lessons that they're getting every day. But here's the bad, but they have to be bad to get it. So it's like this, it's like this thing where like you have to be bad to get the greatness. And like I always, you'll love this. Tell this to I'll give this one for you. Tell these kids, you say this, say like, I can't believe that I'm throwing up all these golden nuggets, okay, on the ground, and you kids are just stepping on it. Okay, that's what you need to say at the house. I'm saying all this goes, I'm giving you money and you're like, Mom, I don't want it. Nope, Mom, I don't care about it. I'm giving you all these gold nuggets. I'm telling you all these great things and you're just stepping on my goal. It's embarrassing. just start telling that to your kids. And eventually they start to understand, like, I am giving you gold and you're just throwing it in the garbage and it hurts my feelings. And like eventually they start to realize, like, yes, the things that my mom is saying makes sense. And we just need to continue to do that and just put ourselves in the shoes of their kids. And that's how we used to be. But we always used to love the uncle, the teacher that would say these corny stuff, these things. But eventually we just realized, wow, like I actually use that in my life now. And so I gave you that one for free.
Thank you.
To use.
Thank you very much.
Let them know. Like,
well, thank God your kids have all those golden nuggets to walk all over every day. Because clearly you are making such a difference, and
thank you.
You are I could sit and listen to you all day.
I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you. You are one of a kind, and my personal hope is that every kid has the opportunity to have one teacher or coach like you, and they'd be, good for life. Yeah. So thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you for coaching. Thank you for teaching. Thank you for serving on Think Big's board. Thanks for being our advocate. And we just really appreciate all you do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And hey, let's do this again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. We'll see you the next time.
Thanks for spending your time with Think Bigger Voices. Visit thinkbigforkids.org/podcast to see more episodes, follow our journey, and stay connected.